Live from the Ballz Visual Radio Studios, this is the Blades on Ballz show. And now, here's your host, the voice of South African rugby himself, Hugh Bladez. Hugh, it's over to you.
Thank you, and good morning to you. Wonderful Monday morning to everybody. It's great to be back on Ballz Radio. For the next 2 hours, we'll be chatting about sport and anything that comes to mind for you, and we'll be playing a few songs. And what a weekend of sport it was. It's just absolutely amazing. I had Friday night game at Loftus Versfeld, and where the Bulls put it across the Stormers. What a wonderful crowd, 44,000 people there. And the Western Pride, I must say this, well done to the Stormers people, absolutely fabulous. They came out in droves. When the Stormers ran onto the field, the players must have thought it was a home game, because there was a wonderful support for Jean de Villiers and his team. Unfortunately, not great, hey? Not great. The kicking was poor. I mean, if they kicked all their goals, they would have been more competitive. Morné Steyn, of course. It's amazing how Morné Steyn kicks so brilliantly at Loftus Versfeld and kicks so brilliantly for the Bulls, and yet occasionally when he's in the green and gold, his kicking just goes off a little bit. But, well, it shows you. I think we'll talk about the other games. I mean, I got home Friday night. Was really great, and then Saturday I just gorged myself on sport. I mean, all those rugby matches, the cricket, well done to the Proteas. What a start for young Kyle Abbott. I had a chat with a mate of mine, Mark du Plessis, this morning, who's an old Kersney boy, and he was gloating and saying, Kersney comes up with a stunner. Yeah, well done to Kyle Abbott. And well done to Kersney. Kersney, of course, are producing some really good players. I think of Robert de Preer's boys, who have all gone through Kersney. And those youngsters, the twins, are both about 1.95 meters tall and well over 100 Ks. And then they have an older brother, Robert, who plays fly half. The twins play loose forward and lock for South Africa schools and South African under-20 side. Can you imagine when the twins gang up against the older brother? I mean, there must be fur flying in that household. So, also, well, yeah, Man City. You Chelsea fans will be champion. It's a bit 2-1. What was it? 2-0. 2-0 Man City beating Chelsea. And then the Pirates, the Buccaneers, getting dumped out of the Nedbank Cup by Maluti College. Never heard of Maluti College. Heard of the Maluti Mountains, but never heard of Maluti College. And Simon's here with me, and so Simon's going to give you any detail in terms of you wanting to get on the Twitter and send us some messages.
Well, Hugh, we've actually made we've made some imaging for you. So, for example, for Twitter,
This is Blades on Ball. Send the voice of South African rugby a telegram right now on @Ballz Radio. And be sure to mark it for attention, Mr. Hugh Bladez.
there you go.
Wow.
A telegram.
A telegram. Amazing.
Yeah, so
Amazing. The guy who's doing that sounds like a horse race commentator.
sounds like a legend. So, yeah, if people want to tweet you, they can. I've got the Twitter open here. If you look on your screen in front of you, Hugh, you can see it over there. @Ballz Radio. If people want to chat to you about the matters sporting this weekend.
Yeah, great. Okay, that's fantastic. Are we going to play us a tune?
We are.
You've got it lined up.
I've got it lined
and
up.
I've got to be a DJ.
It's ABBA.
ABBA.
Super Trooper.
Oh, wow. ABBA playing. My wife loves ABBA. Nice to get those messages from Maurits van der Merwe. Also, Brian Aronson. Brian, yeah, again, wonderful to see the Kings supporters coming out in force. 33,000 odd out there to watch them play against the Western Force. Excuse the pun. I don't know what puns are, but sort of to excuse anything that takes the force into account. kicking. I'm going to talk a little bit about kicking because the games that I saw basically were almost decided on kicks because the one side were kicking well and the other side weren't. But the Kings, what a great start. I think that's absolutely fantastic there. There we will talk to Kevin de Klerk, the president of the Lions Rugby Union, later on, more about the Lions and their challenge and them. They're going over to America and to Canada. So that'll be good for them. But Sir Gil Peterson, the right wing of the Southern Kings, I do the Atlantic Sevens. What happens, and that's schoolboys, and that's the national schools competition, which is absolutely fantastic. And I go into a studio and I do the voiceover. I watch the games and I do the voiceover off screen. So it's actually great for me to keep in touch with School Sevens rugby, and the blokes are really coming on in leaps and bounds in School Sevens rugby. We've seen how international Sevens rugby has improved. But Sir Gil Peterson played for Grey High School last year. I've got a real soft spot for Grey High School because a whole lot of my mates come from Grey High School. The likes of Pippi Kaufman and Graham Pollock and Robbie Rutherford and blokes like that. They all joined the Wanderers Rugby Club, some of them, and a lot of them the Wanderers Golf Club. And then they all got wise because they came up from PE, old grey boys, and then they all got wise and sent their sons to King Edward's, which was really amazing. The Pollock boys, Mickey Gerber grew up in Port Elizabeth. He's an old grey boy, Springbok fullback in 1958 and 1961. He had three boys at King Edward's, and all did very well at rugby and in academics. And then we go back to the Bulls Stormers game. So much expected in so many ways, and yet I have to say it wasn't the greatest game in the world. I think it looked like both sides were sort of feeling one another out. Both sides looked pretty tense. Elton Yankees, well, bless him. Who could blame Elton Yankees for being a little bit off his game? Can you imagine? You have a 46-year-old father and he dies from a bee sting. A dreadful thing. And so Elton's game was off, and as I said, Mornay Staines' game right on the button. And then the Bulls dominated possession early on, particularly start of the second half. Suddenly we thought Alistair Coetzee had injected the Stormers players with something, because they suddenly started to play out of their skulls. Brian Habana leading them along with Jean de Villiers. And then it all just sort of subsided a little bit, and Mornay Staines continued to boot them ahead, and what a wonderful kicking display. Didn't miss a kick in, I think, about 7 kicks. And so one's got to say that some people, I do a lot of Loftus Versfeld games, and I thought that even during the program today I'm going to discuss the question of bias, because bias is something that all commentators are accused of, and people, well, I mean, if you support a side and if you're a fanatical supporter of that team, then you're biased, aren't you? So one's got to say maybe they are biased, but I was talking about that Sevens and Sir Gil Peterson and Grey High School. He played for Grey High School in Sevens rugby last year. And, I mean, he's not tall, but wow, is he strong. He's a really strong youngster, just 18 years old, and scoring 2 tries for the Southern Kings in that game against the Western Force, who I think the Western Force have got a real kicking problem. They were about 80% of the possession, so one's got to say great defence by the Southern Kings, but with 80% of the possession. Worries me a little bit about the Bulls as well. They had at one stage, Joel was pointing out to me, that they had about 65% of the possession, and they, all they had done was kick penalty after penalty after penalty. And one again wonders about their attacking ability, whether are they too conservative or are they just playing typical Bulls rugby. Remember that Victor Madfield is now their attack coach. I thought just whilst I was thinking about Victor Madfield, to pose a little question for some of you bright sparks on who's the third most capped Springbok of all time. We forget very quickly, we forget very quickly. I just thought we forget very quickly. Birthdays today, Springbok birthdays. Norman Riley. Do you know who Norman Riley is, Sam?
I don't have a clue, Hugh. Is he sort of your generation?
What a shame.
How long ago we talking?
Norman Riley celebrates his 74th birthday today.
That's why.
Well, I know Pete Malone, who's 94, and I know that he played in one test match against in 1949, when I wasn't even in nursery school. And I know I can almost name that 1949 side. Norman Riley played in one test, and funnily enough, I remember it because I played at under-20 curtain raiser to the game. It was against the Wallabies in 1963, and the Springboks selectors, bless their souls. You think of, now your coach is the selector and the whole thing. The Springbok selectors, they played a four test series, and Tommy Bedford was the only forward to play in all 4 tests. Then it was Avril Malone as captain. Then it was A.B. Malone, the hooker, who was captain. Then Avril Malone the next test. And they chopped and changed and chopped and changed. And then they dropped Keith Oxley and Nationale Ramp. They dropped Keith Oxley for Norman Riley, who played fly half for Eastern Transvaal. And I played a under 20 for Transvaal under 20, curtain raiser to that test. Johan Roux, his birthday today, and also happy birthday to Vickers van Heerden. Oh, what service the Van Heerden family haven't given to South African rugby. So that's the birthdays. If you go into a website, are we allowed to talk about websites?
It's your show. You're the boss.
I don't want to advertise other people's shows when
about whatever
we're
you like.
Supposed to be here and that sort of thing. I'm just waffling away here. The website just type in GENSLIN, and then you'll see the birthdays will come up, and it gives you the number. Oh, I shouldn't tell you that because I've asked you who's the third most capped. There we go. Third most capped Springbok of all time. Another interesting fact, I enjoy looking up facts, and we sometimes us commentators get accused of being for a little bit sort of having favoritism in terms of certain schools and that sort of thing. But guys and girls, if you're watching on Saturday, the Sharks Cheetahs game, I think, it might have been 8, but I think there were 9 old grey boys on the field. It's a wonderful record for a school, which just goes to show, okay, a whole lot of dads who think that their sons are aspirants, Springboks will apply for their kids to go to grey. But I think that they also have a wonderful system where they coach their kids how to play rugby, and not just the physical side, which some people do. Facts. I was looking it up the other day before Christmas, because I went down to Paarl to talk at the Paarl Boys High Old Boys evening before their derby against Paarl Gym at their brag. What a wonderful guys there. Corne Krieger was there, Karel Du Plessis, and Dani Milan, and then Van der Sluys, the chairman, Mr. Van der Sluys, whose son Wilhelm is playing for the province under 21 side. And so it's a small world, but you'll find that the top 5 schools, which includes Bishops and Grey College and Paul Roos, idiot sitting across the desk from me. Simon Hill was at Paul Roos. Yeah, Paul Roos is fabulous school. And
if you looked at that Bulls game on the weekend, the Bulls Stormers game,
yeah,
it was Kitsoff, There was Hoogaard.
Yeah.
There was Becker.
Jean-Ray Krier.
Jean-Ray Krier.
That's 4.
That's 4 pole
Gotta
roosters.
go some
That's it.
to beat Gray.
Yeah.
They had about 9 on the field. Huh? I'll write them down in a moment and see.
Those are the 4 pole
how
roosters that
close
I could count.
Yes. So 3 interestingly enough in the Bulls side. Are you listening to me?
Yeah, I'm listening.
3 in the Bulls side, not in the Stormers side. So all the Paul Roos boys
No,
have
but-
come up to the Bulls.
Kitsov
Yeah.
and Becker.
Andries Beck.
Andries Becker.
Okay.
So that's
but
the-
Jean-Ray Krier was.
Jean-Ray Krier.
So that's another one. And
Yeah.
Hoogaard.
And
Jean-Ray
Hoogaard.
Krier
So that's
and-
the 4.
Yeah, right. So
So
it
it's
was
2-2.
2-2.
2-2.
Okay. Okay. If you go into GNs and as well, it'll show you go into schools with the most Springboks. Now, GNsland unfortunately doesn't recognise non-test Springboks. There was a guy, Fatty Forrest, who was a King Edward's old boy, who went on Penny Osler's tour in 1933. And a lot of people said Joe van Niekerk was King Edward's first Springbok, but it wasn't. It was that Fatty Forrest who broke his leg playing against Swansea and had to come home, and so never played a test. So he was never, and I think it might have been, in fact, his one and only game for South Africa. But the point is, he did get Springbok colours, and there were a whole host of guys in the early tours when they used to take 30 players over, a whole host of guys who didn't play in a test match, but were Springboks. But if you take the top 5 schools, and my arithmetic is just about right, top 5 schools have produced about 157 Springboks. 157 schools have produced 1 Springbok. So it's quite interesting that those dominant schools do produce Springbok after Springbok after Springbok. Are we going to have a little bit of music now, Sam?
If you wanted to.
Yeah, let's have some
Okay,
music.
some Air Supply.
Air Supply.
All Out of Love.
All Out of Love. Air Supply. Adele, absolutely fabulous. I watched the Grammys. I don't know whether you guys watch the Grammys. Adele, she's so natural. I mean, she's not exactly the slimmest bird in the world, but she's so natural and you know, sort of just, she's not full of crap. And I like that. I think that's fantastic. Francois Bucky's-Nell and Jacques and Gary Late said, Gary Late, I love that. Johnny Bravo, also known as Percy Montgomery, 102 tests. John Smith, 111. Victor Matfield, 110. Percy, 102. Heinrich, no. Joost is 4th in line. Good guess. Joost played in 89 tests. And so he's 4th in line, but thanks also to Gareth Pretorius for your Twitter, or tweet.
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 Yeah?
I'm going to write it in block capitals here. For your tweet, which is fantastic. What about the Sharks Cheetahs game? The Sharks obviously were, I think, favourites to win the game. There was going to be a big battle between Johan Goosen and young Pat Lambie, should I say Pat Lambie and young Johan Goosen. And it turned out to be, I must say, a little bit of an anticlimax because Johan wasn't on top of his game, didn't kick particularly well, either place kicking or out of hand. Patrick Lambie, a little bit of an enigma to me. I sometimes wonder whether he's got the sheer pace that you need to play international rugby at the very, very highest level. I'm saying he's an international rugby player of class, but to play at the very, very highest level, you have to be seriously quick. And I'm not too sure about how quick Patrick Lambie is. Some of you can put me right. Jan de Kooning. Now, Jan, it's unfair, pal, to you write rugby for the 365, and a great job you do. I use your website on a regular basis, and you guys do, John and the boys down there. And not to forget the old man. Oh, we had fun in France. Chateau Latour. Chateau Latour, one of the best-known wine estates in the world. You know, started in like 1066. with the original tour of the tower. J'ai l'équipe de télévision, so the tower, Chateau Le Tour, is there and built by King Louis the 11th or something. But wonderful day we had there with Paul Dobson, John Zolman, wonderful guy, historian of note, Paul, still doing a great job. And Yanda Kuning, I can see you want to say something.
No, I'm listening here. But you talk about John being an historian.
Paul.
Sorry, Paul. But John also, his son, a very good author.
Yes. No, he's great, a very good coach and a very good author. And, 365, I think, do a fabulous job. Paul, as I said, we went to Chateau Le Tour with our mate from Midi Olympique, and his name just escapes me for the moment. Jean-Roger Delceau. Jean-Roger Delceau. And we drank. We went to the estate manager's home for dinner. And he couldn't speak English, and we couldn't speak French, but we got by.
But by the end of the evening, you were speaking French and he was speaking English.
Yeah, absolutely. Maar ek het Afrikaans met hulle gepraat. Jy weet, as jy sê vir hulle, as jy aangaan met jou Frans en ek met my Afrikaans, gaan ons nie mekaar verstaan nie. And then inevitably a French will always say, you speak English? And then you sort of say, I find myself having these conversations in Paris in broken English. Oh, a little bit, so you start babbling away in French. So Patrick Lambie really put it across Johan Goosen on Saturday. I thought he came out certainly on top in that game. Very often, you can play in trials as well, and we, in my day, we used to play trials. They don't play so many trials these days. But you could be the fortunate fly half who got behind a pack of forwards that would give you, let's say, 60% of the ball. And so you had a serious advantage over your opposite number, who was only getting 40% of the ball. And you look at it and you say, if a side gets 60% of the ball, worried me a little bit about the Bulls and worried me about the Force, because in the early stage of the Southern Kings game, the Force had a huge amount of the possession but couldn't score tries. They've got a real kicking problem. They play the Bulls on Saturday. We've also got tonight, I'm going to Wits, because Wits are playing UJ in the Varsity Cup, and a big game in Pretoria. That game will be televised at about 7 o'clock, I think. Tikkies playing against Tikkies, last year's champions, playing against Marties, who have set the sort of standard for this year, and Marties looked like they went through a little bit of a dip, but they're now coming back in a big way. Now, Simon, what are we going to do in terms of... I'm going to phone around about 11 o'clock. I'm going to chat to Kevin de Klerk. We may even get Bob Skinstad on the line, because Bob was doing the Cheetahs Sharks game. So we'll get Bob on the line. Before
we play a song, I wanted to ask your impressions on the NMMU Marties game from last week.
Didn't see it.
Cool, we'll play a song.
Hello, Bob, yeah?
Bob Skinstad. It's Bladez.
Mr. Bladen?
You're live on Ballz Radio, Bob. We sell our souls for anything these days. I'm learning to be a disc jockey. If you can do the job, so can I.
100%.
Nice to talk to you.
Your hand in the glove, I reckon you slot in immediately.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah. Captain of South Africa, Springbok of note, and now a television commentator of note. And what did you say, Simon?
And a radio host.
Bob, great to talk to you. You were in Bloemfontein on Saturday. What did you think?
Well, it's great to chat to you guys too. I was in Bloem on Saturday, and I was pretty excited about, I've got to be honest, I was excited about the type of game that we were going to see, and I wasn't disappointed. The Sharks for me looked cool and composed. They played the first half according to a game plan. They really looked in charge going out at the beginning of the second half, and then suddenly the Free State Cheetahs woke up from what seems like a season-long slumber and said, well, we're not going to take this lying down. And Goosen, who'd been relatively poor for his amazing skill set until then, just ignited the back line again. I mean, he's got such a good distribution game. They scored some turnover and long distance tries, which got the whole stadium, including myself, excited. And then there was a nail-biting last couple of minutes. So I was delighted with the level of entertainment and the type of game we ended up seeing.
Just tell me, because it's difficult to see at the Free State Stadium, and I have to be honest, Bob, in fact what happened to me was at about 26-5, I think the score was, I flicked over to the cricket, and there was a bit of action in the cricket, and then when I flicked back, it was suddenly the score was 26-22 or something. And was there a reasonable crowd there? Because there were fabulous crowds at Loftus and down at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't unbelievable compared to those two. I heard. I obviously watched the game on Friday night, and heard you mentioned it was 40,000 something. So that was brilliant at Loftus. But I think at Bloem it was about 16,000. So I mean, Bloem it's a small place. 16,000. A lot of people are critical because it's such a big stadium. It's quite hard to make it look full. But 16,000 people. The car parks, etc. We usually do our judging of how many people are there from how many people stay after and around buying, etc. beforehand. So it was fullish. The main grandstand was probably full, and I think the quality of rugby, and you mentioned it. That's exactly what happened, because in the build-up to the game, we'd been watching, obviously, the Proteas chasing those wickets of Pakistan. So we went across to the game, and we couldn't believe it, because at half-time I went to the loo and passed the TV, and they were already bowling at the new batsman. So they'd obviously gone into the follow-on, and
Dale Steyn got a ball.
All the action happened at the same time. But it was a game, like I said, that the Sharks took control early. Lambie was on form with the boot. The Cheetahs scored a try against the run of play ball that went out close to the line, and then they had a driving maul and they scored a very good try. They led 5-0, and then it literally went 5-3, 6-5, 9-5, 12-5, and then I think they got a try to take it to 19-5. So the Sharks really turned it on.
You sound a lot better on Ballz and Two Oceans Vibe, Bob.
Oh, Dan, you say the nicest things.
Must be our compressor or something. How's it going? All right.
I'm good, bud. How are you?
All good. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, Darren's just come into the studio. You mentioned that you'd watched the game on Friday night. Your impressions of that game?
I think it was a game where Morné Steyn decided to try and dispel the myth that he's not all that in terms of a fly half. He was very, very good with the boot. He's the guy that crushed the Stormers' side. I love the use it call at the base of the
Isn't it great?
the ruck
Yeah.
or the maul, because
Fabulous.
it just speeds up the game. It just stops these wearisome defence-orientated lines where you've just got one-off runners and the crappy kind of rugby that we've seen a little bit over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And it allows the guys to move quickly enough that the real stars of the game can stand out. So we saw a couple of quality players making a nice impression on the game. I was a bit disappointed with the Stormers. I mean, obviously, Yankees missed a few kicks. I don't think that was the worst part of the game. I think they could have played a higher pressure, higher tempo game earlier.
Their lineouts were so poor,
they turned
too.
it on a bit.
Their lineouts, Bob, were so poor.
No, they were awful. But you know what? The lineouts across the whole tournament have been awful. I think all the lineout coaches maybe took a long holiday and went to the same place, and everybody read everybody else's notes, because they, I mean, even the Highlanders couldn't win, their own ball. I mean, the Cheetahs, Adrian Strauss, usually throwing darts, he missed his first 4 lineouts. I couldn't believe it.
Unreal. Now, in terms of the Super Rugby weekend, did you get to see the Chiefs game?
I did, yes. We missed the first probably 30 minutes, and then as the Chiefs started coming back and dominating the game, I think I either flew in or flew out. I'm not sure, but I watched from about 10 minutes up until halftime, and then the second half. I mean, some magic, poor defence, I thought, overall, but certainly some magic rugby.
Yeah, the Chiefs, I think, really sort of put down a benchmark, and in terms of attacking rugby, one might say defence is a little bit poor. They do have huge guys who can break tackles, though. And, they run at angles that make it very difficult for you to actually line up a tackle.
That's exactly right. And I think they've got a loose forward there, Sam Cane, who's probably close to the next Richie in terms of New Zealand rugby. He's got an incredible work rate, and he looks after that ball. So the other two loose forwards can actually run with the ball, and they're ex-sevens players. So, you're 100% right. The angles they run and the way they break tackles makes a massive difference for the attack.
And I think the Chiefs certainly looked like the side to be. I thought I only saw highlights, but the Auckland Blues also looked pretty useful.
They did, yeah. They actually, it was quite an interesting game as well. They were behind initially, and then they won sort of going away. John Kerwin's first game in charge, Ali Williams as captain, but they've also got big, strong backs, and I was quite impressed with the combination of the backs and forwards doing the hard work. The New Zealanders in general play a very, very sort of high tempo game. That's why we've always had a chance to compete against them, because we play a very defence orientated game. If we can step it up and keep our defence, but also play the attacking game they've got, then I think there's some serious light at the end of the tunnel for South African rugby.
And Bob, it's been a good start for the Brumbies. I mean, you got the Brumbies under Jake. I mean, you played with Jake. Under Jake in the World Cup in 2007. Is Jake very defence orientated?
I don't think as much as people think. I think his greatest strength is that he's a man manager. I mean, look what he's doing with Clyde Rathbone. He's drawing the best out of the young players there. I mean, sure, the first game of the season was a bit of a ball fest, but I mean, if you got David Pocock there playing the game that he can play, I mean, he's an absolute tower of strength in those rucks and mauls, and he was slowing down the opposition ball. And then the way that they came out in this game, you can definitely see that it's not defence only. He's actually got attack on the mind. So I quite like the combination. But as a man manager, I'm also impressed he's brought back Smith, who was had 110 games for the Wallabies. He's going to be on a short-term loan back to the Brumbies. So he's clearly getting guys who can quicken up the ruck area and get the ball to the backs, because he's worked out that the fast rugby is going to work.
Yeah, and good luck to him. I think a lot of people sort of said, well, Jake's going over to the Brumbies. He's really going to battle because they don't have a player core that is well known and that type of thing. And I would say, I think, I don't know whether you agree with me, that he's done a great job so far.
Definitely, and I think it's part of that reason. Like I said, as a man manager, he'll get the young guys and he'll say, listen, I'm going to believe in you. Let's keep doing the right things right, and let's keep doing the hard work. And he might not win Super Rugby this year or even next year, but he'll certainly improve the standings of the Brumbies, and he'll certainly improve the kind of rugby that the personnel that they've got plays, and at the same time, by hook or by crook, he's building up a real squad there. I mean, he was sniffing around a couple of young South African players. He's definitely got enough convincing skills to bring, the Rathbones and the Smiths back into the game, and then the other players are just going to be buoyed by that and excited to perform.
Yeah, great job. Tell me, Bob, finally, did you get to see the Crusaders, the most successful side in Super Rugby? Did you see them play?
No, I didn't. I don't think anybody did.
No. Maybe they had a bye.
They had a bye.
Well, I'll have to check the results.
We're looking forward to. We'll see them next week.
Yeah. Tell me, Bob, where are you this weekend?
I am in Durban.
For the Sharks playing?
Sharks against the Stormers. I was hoping to be sitting next to the dulcet tones of Mr. Hugh Bladez, but Andy Copper Spaniel is going to be working with me.
Okay. Great, yeah. So I'm going to be at Loftus. I think the Bulls, looking at that, the way the Western Force played against the Southern Kings. Maybe you didn't see much of that game because you just finished your game on Saturday. Southern Kings really having a great start, but Western Force, their kicking is appalling.
No, I managed to get probably 70 minutes of the game. We got away from the stadium and then watched it at the hotel next to the Zoo Lake in Bloemfontein. You know
right,
well.
yes. Yeah.
And I think you're 100% right. The Kings played with a lot of passion, and they capitalised on a lot of mistakes by the Force.
Yeah. And I say that if you're going to have Morne Steyn kicking all his goals, and then that Zimbabwean-born Godwin youngster, I mean, he missed one from in front of the posts, and the guy who took over couldn't throw them over from 20 metres.
No, exactly. Unfortunately, it's Michael Foley's attempt at resurrecting the Force. You have to, it doesn't matter whether you support the process of the Kings or not, you have to take your hat off, because they're the first ever debut franchisee to win their first game, and I think they'll be pleased that it was the Force, because the Force were rubbish on the night, but it's certainly something for them to build on from.
Yeah, I must say, Bob, my opening salvo this morning, if you can call it a salvo, was that, well done to the Kings. They've got a fabulous crowd there, and they did really well. I thought they defended. I was watching them with particular interest, and also watching the Force, because I'm doing them on Saturday, and the Kings really defended outstandingly. And then the little 18-year-old Sir Gil Peterson I'd hate the way he dives. I mean, you break his shoulder. But they had a good game, didn't they?
It was a good game. They did well, and I thought their loose forwards came on, particularly in the second half, not taking away from Luke Watson's effort, but the guy who replaced him, I think it was Van Schalkwyk, he had a wonderful game, and so did Cornel de Pre.
Yeah, they're very good. Well, you would know, being a world-class loose forward yourself. Bob, thanks for talking to me and taking the time out. Really appreciate it. Bob and I partnered one another at golf at Serengeti about a month ago, and it was great fun, and I look forward to the next time. But Bob Skinstad, thanks very much for chatting with me.
No problem. Thank you very much, Bladez. Cheers, guys. Have a great day.
Cheers. Right, Simon, what do we got on the...
Got some bangles now, you.
Bangles.
Manic Monday.
Oh, wonderful. I like Manic Monday.
That was the Blades on Ball show. Join the voice of South African rugby on your wireless next Monday for more unbelievable memories and banter. Until then, stay classy, like 20-year-old Glenn Morangi classy.